It's getting so hard to hold the tension. I'm freaking out because I don't have a job. Yeah, I have put my savings away. I'm like, I need to work. I need to work. I don't have enough money to sit around here for another month and not work.
This was one of the most important components in my client manifesting her dream house, her dream job, and much more. I'll be sharing extremely wild yet true stories about manifestation and the people who are fully committed to this journey. And you'll see that you can do that too. Welcome to the mechanics of manifestation. I love the word mechanics because it has two definitions, and the second one is the one I use the most. The first definition is how things work. It's a way of how things work. Mechanics of swimming, mechanics of law, mechanics of running a business. The second definition is the science of how a machine works. And when you put it all together in context, this implies that manifestation itself is like a machine, and we can study it, build it, and use it in scientific ways. So how do we do that? We use premises. A premise is an assumption about how things work, and whether that premise is true or not, it does not matter because that premise always gets you the result. For example, Olympic swimmers are told to imagine their hands as fins. So every single time they do that, they swim faster. And obviously, this is not true. Their hands are not fins. Yet, this premise works all the time. Similarly, we'll be using some of the most powerful premises known to man to build a manifesting machine. So here is the first premise. Imagine that you're married 5 times and every single time your partner dies of a blood-related disease. This was not murder. We double checked. This was manifestation. And this premise will show you how that happened. The first premise is structure has integrity. Structure, what does that mean? A minimum of 2 points that have a connection to each other is called a structure. A circle is a structure. There is a connection between the center point and the circumference that make it a structure, the radius. Similarly, a box is a structure. Tony Robbins and the buyer's remorse. Now that's a structure. If you've ever seen or been to Tony Robbins' seminars, workshops, etc., you'll see that they hype you up. They make you believe that the world is at your feet. They make you believe that you can achieve anything, that you can climb any mountain, that you can do absolutely anything, and your energy levels are here. And that's when the sales pitch comes. Tony Robbins and the people at that level, they understand something very important, that selling, it's not an intellectual process, it is an emotional process. And here's the structure. Emotions make you take action. If you're angry, you act. If you're fearful, you act. If you're happy, you act. If you're at that high level of hype, you act, you buy. And all good salespeople understand that intellect comes after the sale. Before the sale, it's emotion. And what you'll notice is if the thing that you've bought is not for you, and if you were manipulated into it, you will have buyer's remorse. Why? Because as soon as you take the action, the emotion disappears, it dissipates, it's gone, and then the intellect shows up and you realize, oh shit, I didn't need this. So that is a structure. Structure has integrity. Something structured determines its behavior, that behavior determines its reality, its results. A ball will always tend to roll, a box will always tend to stay. What this also means is that if you're in the wrong structure, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, no matter how much effort you put in, the results will be average at best. But if you're in the right structure, no matter what you do wrong, the results will always be good. That is also true. For example, I manifested this beautiful penthouse in Mallorca in Spain. My view was overlooking the sea on one side and mountains with the sunset on the other side. I was staying in an Airbnb for 2 months, and 1 month into my stay, the woman told me that she had double booked my stay and I would have to move out in a week. Now, if I was panicking, if I was anxious, then I would just go look for the nearest accommodation and then give myself more time to build what I wanted. But I used the structures of manifestation. And 5 weeks into it, I got this instinct that I should write a message on a group, a very specific Facebook group. And for 24 hours, I got no response, nothing. And then something pushed me to check the post again, and there was a message on there. The guy was saying he wanted to leave his apartment in an emergency, and he invited me to come and have a look. I went there, turned out to be the penthouse, and it turns out the guy who was renting it out was an old friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a long time. And the rent was cheaper than what I was paying in the Airbnb. So now let's come to the 5 husband story. Here's the structure for you. Your beliefs create reality. If you want to manifest a wild, adventurous, and crazy life, the first step is to learn how to use obstacles, obstructions, and even conflicts as fuel for manifestation. Join the course, link is in the description. You have limiting belief systems that produce a certain behavior, and those behaviors produce experiences, and that collection of experiences is what you call reality. And then that reality goes and reinforces the belief that you started with. When we spoke to this woman, we did a process with her where we took her back in time into her childhood where she first experienced this pattern. And it turns out when she was 3 years old, her father had come back from the war and he died of a blood related disease because of shrapnel that went into his blood. So it was actually lead poisoning. At 3 years old, we're trying to figure out life. We're trying to figure out and learn what life is about. And what she learned at the time was if I love someone, they will die of poisoning. And that assumption became fixed in her, and that created this unconscious radar where she went into the world and got only attracted to people who have an underlying blood condition that even they don't know about. Now that is beliefs create reality.